and call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. Now please join me in rising for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arns.
Here.
Webb. McCarthy.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Snorton. Clausen.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I'll be abstaining from the consent agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
Voting in favor: Granquist, Arns, Murin, Clausen, Hildebrand. Abstaining: McCarthy. Motion carries.
Look for a motion to approve the full agenda with one change, and that is moving item 20, number 20, ahead of item number 19.
I'll make a motion to approve with those changes. Second.
Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to item number 20 under special presentations. And this is a proclamation for February 27th to March 3rd, 2023 as Public Schools Week. I will read the proclamation. It reads as such: whereas the last week of February 2023 has been nationally designated as a time to recognize the role public schools have in setting young adults on the path to a fulfilling life. And in the United States, there are more than 98,000 public schools serving 50.7 million students that employ millions of teachers, specialists, administrators, and support staff. And in America, public schools educate 9 of every 10 students and serve as the great equalizer for children, regardless of potential barriers. And public schools nationwide are balancing the competing needs of educating our children, providing a shelter for disadvantaged students and a safe haven for all, and a nurturing place for love and learning. And the city of Norfolk joins Norfolk Public Schools District, educators, parents, and many others across the country in showing the strength of our nation's public schools and the potential of our students' futures. And the celebration of public schools occurs year-round with hashtag Public School Proud to highlight the exemplary work of our educators, particularly during extraordinary times and circumstances. And whereas superintendents, principals, teachers, paraprofessionals, other school staff, and parents make public schools vital components of communities and are working hard to improve educational outcomes for children throughout our city and across the country. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moaning, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim February 27th to March 3rd, 2023 as Public Schools Week in the City of Norfolk, and encourage all citizens to take due note of the observance. And I believe we have some NPS representatives here to accept the proclamation. If you all would come forward. I'm going to make you all introduce yourselves. And then we're going to take the
I'm Terry Bauer. I'm on the Norfolk Public School Board.
Sandy Wall, board member.
Lindsay Dixon, board member.
Jamie Jo Thompson, superintendent.
Amy Clausen, classroom teacher.
Brenda Carhart, board member.
Brian Horn, classroom teacher.
Very good. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do day in and day out to support our families and our school children. We obviously recognize that having healthy public schools in the community makes a healthy community. So thank you for that work and effort, and dedication, and involvement that you have in so many people's lives every day. So it's good.
I was standing there.
Yeah, you want to get in the middle? There we go.
Get everybody in?
Stand a little bit.
Somebody can give a
Thank you
speech
so
if you
much.
want. The floor is yours.
No, I just want to thank you for making this proclamation. I know that our staff work extremely hard to provide the best opportunities for our children as possible. So it means a lot to them to be recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I think it'd be wise for me to say, thanks for all your hard work.
For your own good, yeah. All right, that brings us to item number 19, which is a presentation by the Nebraska Public Power District. And we get the big boss tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Moaning
Thanks
and
for
members
being
of
here.
the council. My name is Tom Kent. I'm the president and CEO of Nebraska Public Power District, and it's truly a pleasure to be here this evening, and especially with the opportunity to witness you celebrating Educators Week. I am a product of the local area. Most of my formative years, I grew up in Tilden, Nebraska. I'm a graduate of Elkhorn Valley High School. My parents live in Norfolk. My dad, many decades ago, was a teacher at Norfolk High School, and I went to 1 year of schooling in Norfolk. I'm a graduate of West Side Elementary Kindergarten before we moved on. So definitely some ties. I do have other family members that still live in the community. And I just wanted to take a little time today and update you all on some of the good things that are going on at MPPD, talk about some of the good things in our long-term relationship with Norfolk. We have over 100 employees in the community, and several of them are here with me tonight, so I wanted to recognize them briefly. We have Robin Tweedy in the back, who's our Vice President and Chief Information Officer. Pat Hanrahan, who is our General Manager of our Retail Business Unit. Brittany Koenig, Retail Account Manager. Larry Arns, Wholesale Account Manager. And troublemaker at times. He's smiling. Okay, Nicole Sadladchek, who's our Economic Development Manager, Jim Lautzenheiser, who is Sustainable Energy Efficiency Leader here in town, and Josh O'Brien, who's our Metering Supervisor for our metering activities across the district. Also, we have one of our brand new board directors elected to a seat on the board in this past election, Sue Fuchman, who I'm sure you all know and recognize from her former service here to the city. I'm excited to have her as a member of our board representing this community as well as the surrounding area. As I mentioned, we have over 100 employees in the area, about a $10 million annual payroll in the Norfolk area. I'm very proud of the service we've provided to the city for many decades. You can see a picture there. I was fortunate enough to share the light with Mayor Moaning earlier this past summer when we were doing the ribbon cutting for the community solar facility here in Norfolk, as well as the battery system, which is up and running today. We do have a long-standing working relationship with Nucor Steel, who's also a very large employer in the city and one of our two largest consumers of electricity across our system, across the state of Nebraska. Here's another picture of the solar facility, community solar facility. It was done in partnership and leadership with the city here, as well as with N-Solar, Sol Systems, GenPro, and Messner Development. And it's a really nice addition to our generation fleet, and I think a nice complement to the city's goals in terms of moving forward with cleaner energy resources. Just a little bit in general who we are. I'm not going to read all the facts and figures here, but you get an idea of our breadth. We cover 84 of the 93 counties in the state. Our board of directors is elected popularly from 11 subdivisions, and again, Director Fuchman represents this particular area, Madison, Stanton County area. 92,000 retail customers, including the community of Norfolk. A little over $1.2 billion of revenue, 31 different generating facilities, and a statewide transmission system. Public power has been around since the 1930s. One of our strengths is how we work together, supporting our wholesale communities, our wholesale rural power districts, and our retail communities to provide low-cost, affordable, reliable, resilient, sustainable energy resources and manage risk on behalf of all the consumers that we serve in Norfolk and the surrounding area. We have 5 strategic initiatives that we're focused on as we move towards the future. One is to continue to work to decarbonize our resource mix over time while balancing affordability, reliability, and resilience. Doing that to improve and strengthen the alignment with our customers, both the retail communities and wholesale customers that we serve. We have very strong positive relationships, and we want to continue to grow those and make sure as we move to the future together with you that we're working to meet your needs in the future as we move forward. Continue to grow and develop our team and ensure that we have good leadership and bench strength and engaged teammates as we move to the future. Continue to focus on managing costs to ensure that we remain affordable for the long term, and then working to transform and innovate our business using technology, providing new products and services to serve you as a community and to serve our end-use customers across the state. As you look at our generation mix today, we're roughly 62% carbon free. A large portion of that is our nuclear power plant. We have an 800 megawatt nuclear power plant that we own and operate, Cooper Nuclear Station, down along the Missouri River. We also have wind and solar, like the community solar project here in Norfolk. Hydro, some that's owned and some that's purchased as preference power from the Western Area Power Administration. And then the balance is made up of our coal resources, Gerald Gentleman Station, one of the lowest cost generating units in the nation, Sheldon Station, and then a balance of natural gas-fired resources, Beatrice Power Station, et cetera, to help balance our generation as we move forward. We have strategic directives related to our generation mix that I wanted to just highlight briefly. Our board at the end of 2021 passed a strategic directive setting a goal for carbon reduction for our business to get to carbon neutral by 2050, while balancing again affordability and reliability and ensuring that we do it in an affordable and reliable way. We are very active in working on several projects that will help move us in that direction. We are leading the effort for the multi-state mid-continent hydrogen hub, which is looking at developing hydrogen as a resource for fuel and other uses. We are working heavily on developing potential carbon capture and sequestration technologies, again using some funds that we were granted from the DOE to support that. Looking at energy storage, and we're addressing and looking at microgrid opportunities with our customers to look at using renewable technology coupled with storage as an alternative to adding wires in certain situations where it may make sense as we look to the future. We have 79 retail communities across the state. You can see we're basically border to border from southeast to northwest Nebraska in the Panhandle. In this direct area around Norfolk, we serve Meadowgrove, Tilden, Oakdale at retail. As we look at our retail communities, we've been focused under past leadership on what we call the 3 R's, ensuring that we maintain a positive, affordable rate position, ensuring that we manage reliability and relationships with our customers. So from a rate standpoint, I'll have some more facts and figures coming up. 2023 was our 10th year with no overall retail rate increase, 4th year where we're providing a production cost adjustment refund to our customers. So what that means is, because of our performance of our generation fleet in the market, we're able to bring back excess revenue margin from those market operations and then return that to our customers, both our retail communities and retail customers and wholesale communities as we move forward, and we've been very successful there. Right now, as we look at our goal for our retail rate position to be in the lowest or top 15th percentile, we're at the 7.2 percentile when you compare our rates nationally in 2021, and then in top quartile in reliability performance as well. We do a lot in terms of supporting the community. We support Northeast Community College through some of the scholarships funds that are related, raised through supporting the Nebraska Open Golf Tournament. We have several of our teammates here in Norfolk that are involved in various community activities, including Nicole Solacek, who is on the Northeast Community College Board. Courtney Dentlinger, who I didn't mention, is our Vice President of Customer Service and Chief Customer Officer. Her and Nicole and Brittany all serve on the Action Council for Norfolk. One of our team leaders in our customer service area, Tomas Jimenez, is on the Norfolk Diversity Council. And then we have one of our teammates, again, in the customer service area that's been asked to join the board of the Norfolk Area Teammates Program. So one of our values is really ensuring that our team engages in the local community, and the examples here in Norfolk are far and wide in terms of our team, both engaging here and in the surrounding communities where they live and work. I want to touch briefly on what we call our Retail Pro Agreement. Pro stands for Professional Retail Operations Agreement. That's an agreement we have with all of our retail communities. That sets the contractual relationship between MPPD and our retail customers through the city councils or the governance structure in the community. And so the distribution system in all of our retail communities is owned by the community. So in Norfolk, the distribution system is owned by the city of Norfolk. And what this agreement does is we lease that system, and the city gets a lease payment in terms of funds that you can use for your general fund or however this council determines to employ them. And our agreement allows for that lease payment to be set by the council working with us. And so there's a range there. It's typically from 12 to 14%. But again, that's something that as we move into the future, there's flexibility there with all of our retail communities. It's a full service agreement. So we provide all the engineering and operation support. We provide emergency response, storm repair. We take the risk for replacing equipment that's damaged by storm. And that risk is shared amongst all of NPPD's retail customer base. So again, one of the strengths of public power is how we work together to share risk, manage resources, and deliver low-cost, reliable energy to the communities we serve. Account management, billing, customer service, et cetera. The current agreement we have with the city is set to expire in 2030. A little bit more on rates. You can see on the screen kind of where our rates compare, and this is based on Energy Information Administration data that's put together by the U.S. government based on what's reported. So our rate at retail for all of our blended retail rates, industrial, commercial, residential, and excluding the lease payment that I talked about and gross revenue tax, and I got a slide coming up to talk a little bit more about that, was 6.6 cents. That average revenue per kilowatt hour sold at retail, 6.6 cents per kilowatt hour. And again, that was a 7.2 percentile overall. If you look above that, you can see in green is comparables with Mid-America Corporation in Iowa. The orange above that is Lincoln Electric System. The red above that's the Nebraska average, looking at the 2021 line going up. The purple is Omaha Public Power District. The lighter blue is West North Central region, which is Nebraska and the upper Midwest states, and then the overall USA average. Something to be very proud of in terms of delivering value to your community and the people that you represent. Talking about that lease payment for the city of Norfolk, you can see the last 5 years highlighted here. I'll just highlight 2022. We returned to the city in the form of a lease payment a little over $4.7 million. We have, under state law, are required to pay gross revenue tax, and in lieu of tax, as a not-for-profit entity, we are not taxable. We don't pay property taxes, but we do pay what's called a gross revenue tax, and that's based on 5% of our adjusted gross revenue in the retail in the municipalities we serve. So that gross revenue tax of a little over $1.5 million is distributed to the county, and then they distributed that out to the taxing agency. So the city gets some, the school district gets some, et cetera, within Norfolk. And then also the city sales tax share of our sales in the city of Norfolk are a little over $372,000 for 2022. All that can be used, again, in ways to support the operations of the city. And so as you look at the 2021 property tax levy for first-class cities in the state, you can see how Norfolk stacks up with everyone else, number 3 of all the first-class cities. The items, the lines in blue are the retail first-class cities that MPPD serves at retail. So in general, that lease payment that I talked about, the communities that we serve at retail, that helps them maintain lower property tax rates. Wanted to talk briefly about some of the initiatives that we're undergoing right now. Some of those we're doing here in Norfolk. Some of them are more statewide initiatives that Norfolk benefits from. But again, it's about transforming our business, taking advantage of technology, and innovating at the same time. So you see a lot around data and infrastructure, advanced metering infrastructure, putting in advanced meters that allows us to get that metering information remotely. Also gives us the ability to give each of our customers a clearer picture of how and when they use their metering energy to help them make better decisions in terms of how and when they want to use their energy. A web portal that allows our customers to interact with us via the web. Virtual lobbies in our retail offices that gives our customers a way to come in and get that immediate access if they want to come in. We have various reliability programs that we employ in all of our communities around vegetation management, pole inspections, assessing our distribution circuits, underground testing, et cetera. Specifically to the Norfolk area, you can see some of the capital improvement that we've done listed here and some of the things that we've partnered with Norfolk around the annexation of the DeVent area center and the facilities there, some of the work around Bradford Industrial Park, et cetera. So with all of our communities, our focus is to, again, maintain and strengthen our long-term service and partnership with you, bring the best of public power to the people we serve in the state of Nebraska, ensure that we deliver on our mission of reliable, low-cost energy, outstanding customer service, and continue to power the everyday life of the people we serve, not only today, but into the future and create a brighter future for them. That's the strength of public power. Public power is owned by the public, by you. And you have the opportunity to represent and elect who represents you in making decisions on our board of directors, like Director Fuchman in the back of the room here. I'm partial to public power, but from my perspective, when you think about how critical energy is and how critical electricity is to a well-functioning economy and to a safe society, as we look to today and the future, I think the public power way of delivering that, focusing on providing value to customers and not focusing on profits and shareholders, is the right way to go. So I will entertain and try my best to answer any questions you may have. And again, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Any questions? You've left us all spellbound. I do want to thank you for being here. I think it's a great idea to have these regular updates from the NPPD. Thank you for the rest of your team that's joined you tonight. And thank you for the ongoing commitment to the partnership in serving City of Norfolk and its citizens.
Yep. Well, I, again, greatly appreciate being here. And as you can tell, this partnership's been going on for a very long time, and we want to make sure that it goes on for a very long time in the future. That's one of the big, unique benefits in Nebraska being a 100% public power state. I'm glad to be part of it and glad to have you as one of our customers.
I can tell you that with the addition of the solar facility here, people are following along, because at first there's questions about the credit and when will I see this. So it's proven itself out, because I hear from people now that it's doing what it said it was going to do. So we appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. That brings us to our regular agenda and item 21. I would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5821 to enact Chapter 24, Article 12 of the official city code to allow the operation of golf cart vehicles on city streets and setting forth the provisions under which golf cart vehicles may be operated.
I'll make a motion of consideration for ordinance 5821.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. And for some background on this, I think we're going to hear from Andy Colvin, our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. May have to defer to the city attorney here for a little bit on some of the details of the ordinance you have. I know this has gone through a few different revisions. But essentially, this is an ordinance that will regulate and allow golf carts to be on city streets with some restrictions. I'll ask Danny to kind of go through and review some of those based on what came out of subcommittee and refresh everybody's memory. But this is something that's come to the city before. It has failed in the past, but there's been a lot of interest coming forward since then to have this revisited and have this as another option for people to have to get around the community with some restrictions. So I guess with that, Danny, if you want to just do a quick summary of some of the changes and what we have here with some of the rules with this ordinance.
Yes, so the ordinance that is before you was following increased citizen interest that it's our understanding was brought to elected officials, especially following, I believe it was last year or the year before when we did the UTV ordinance. So those are now allowed on city streets. During that time, some conversation had emerged regarding golf carts, and since that time, even more has emerged, and that's why we're here today. Just to give a little bit more context, we first discussed this topic at the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting on September 1st of 2020. After that meeting, staff began to prepare a draft ordinance. It was reviewed at a city council work session, and a motion was made to forward further discussion to the Public Safety Subcommittee and to have city staff continue working on a draft ordinance. That motion failed, with 2 voting in favor, 3 voting in opposition, and 3 council persons absent. At the September 19th, 2022 City Council meeting, 3 citizens requested that City Council again consider allowing golf carts on city streets during the public comment period. On January 17th of this year, the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee met to review a potential ordinance that would allow golf cars on certain city streets. A motion to forward the ordinance as presented to the full council was approved unanimously, and that is the ordinance that is included for you tonight in the agenda packet. Some of the specifics, the main specifics regarding this are that obviously those won't be allowed on state highways. The miles per hour on a street cannot exceed 25 miles per hour in order for a golf cart vehicle to operate on that street. So 25 miles per hour or less. A user of a golf cart vehicle can cross a street that would be more than 25 miles per hour or a state highway. However, they cannot ride on that street. Operation will only be allowed during hours of sunrise and sunset, and the headlight and taillight of the golf car vehicle shall be on. In addition, all of the registration of each of the golf cars that would be allowed on the streets would have to go through the police division, and there would be a fee. The police division will make sure that the vehicle is in good working order, and there will be a registration tag that is issued to each user. And I'm happy to answer any more questions. We also have Chief Miller here, and he can help. He was vital to the drafting of this ordinance, and he can answer any questions that I can't.
Thank you, Andy. And Danny, any questions right now, Council?
I was just gonna note, reading through this while Danny was talking about it, I believe it's 20 mile an hour, not 25, so.
So
Right?
that's where it kind of gets, if you go down to, let me find it here. So a golf car vehicle is defined as something that can't go faster than 20 miles per hour. However, it can't go on streets. The speed zone is 25 miles per hour. So that's a good point. Both of those are included within the ordinance.
Thank you.
Danny, we had discussed, I think during subcommittee, the potential of making crossings across arterials or state highways only allowable at marked crosswalks. Is that part of the provision here or not?
The language that's included within the ordinance is exactly how it reads in state statute.
So no, it's not
it doesn't
just marked
specifically
crossing.
say marked.
Marked crossing, okay.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions?
I got one, and I read through the ordinance, and, you know, this really mirrors what LB 66 right now in the state legislature is of allowing UTVs, which we already do, but ATVs also on roadways. And I guess my question to the rest of the council is there an objection to including ATVs in this ordinance if they follow the same regulations that are in this ordinance? I feel it is a form of transportation that is readily utilized. If you look in South Dakota, they've had this for a long time, where you've been able to use ATVs on the roadways.
Corey, I'd probably say, if it would end up being exactly the same, that it would be maybe an addendum to this later on if this so passes. But like UTVs, if it's different, then we should have 3 different ordinances if they would such pass. If that makes sense.
And that's a good point. I do want to point out in response to that question that this is a separate area of state statute. So there's one for the UTVs and ATVs component. However, for purposes of the golf car vehicles, which is what is anticipated within this ordinance specifically, it's a separate area of law. So they're related, but they are separate.
So looking at what the state statute actually is, use of limits to apply to all terrain vehicles and utility type vehicles, statute 60-6355. Is this something that you would prefer to look at as a separate ordinance from the golf cart ordinance and the UTV ordinance, or can the ATV and the UTV be in the same ordinance?
The ATV and the golf cars cannot be within the same ordinance.
Right. But if I misspoke, I'm sorry, but the ATVs and the UTVs could be involved in the same ordinance, correct?
It would probably be easier to split it out because there are differences, there are distinctions.
Okay.
That would apply to one but not the other. And Chief Miller, you can, if you feel the need to chime in on this, you're much better at the ATV UTV distinction than I am.
Mayor and council, to answer the UTV question, the UTV and the ATV statutes are very similar to each other. The golf cart statutes are completely separate.
Okay.
So you could put the UTV and the ATV stuff together. We should not put the golf cart stuff with the UTV, ATV, because their guidelines are separate in the statute.
Okay.
Different criteria outlined in the statute for UTV, ATV, and golf cart.
Okay, so going forward with an ATV, it does not meet the criteria of this golf cart or this club car conversation. Is this something that you would like to see as a separate ordinance from the UTVs and the golf carts, so all 3 would stand alone in the vehicle specific?
I wouldn't have any objections to the UTVs, I'm sorry, to the ATVs being part of the UTV section. Because the guidelines by state statute are similar, UTV, ATV could go together without a problem. Golf cart should not be part of those.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
And that's primarily because of weight and size.
Speed.
There's a variety of And things. speed. UTVs and ATVs have speed limits that are separate from golf carts. Golf carts are specific to their design. Each one has their own criteria as far as weight, width, measurements, that type of thing. But golf carts has a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for both manufacturer and less than 20 miles an hour for manufacturer and speed limit regardless of what the city council wants to do. State statute regulates that piece of it for golf carts. Thank you.
Okay.
just asking the rest of the council, is this something we would want to look at in the future, or make an addendum to the UTV ordinance that we have in place now?
Sounds to me like you'd want to get this one out of the way, this ordinance out of the way with golf carts, and then move to a totally separate, either UTV, ATV combo, or just a UTV ordinance on its own. But then that would give Chief Miller an opportunity to put the presentation together if we want to do something with ATVs.
Yeah, ATV we wouldn't be ready for that conversation yet.
Okay.
The golf cart conversation itself is more complex than what people realize because of a variety of statutory guidelines and manufacturer guidelines and that type of thing. So this golf cart piece in itself is complicated enough.
Okay. Well, I guess I guess, with separation, we'll keep them separated, but I would like to continue the conversation of having an ordinance of ATVs and golf carts and UTVs separate, or combining ATVs and UTVs in the future. But I'm okay with the way the ordinance reads for the golf carts now.
Do they make an AUTV?
Don't get cute, Councilman.
Actually, they kind of do.
All right. Any other questions for Chief while he's here?
Oh, I got one. If I interrupted you, Frank, I apologize. Have we had any problems since the conception of we were able to license UTVs in the city of Norfolk? Have you guys on the police force seen problems?
The issues that we have had, I would say, are people who have not gone through the registration process. Because part of our registration process is educating those who are getting licensed and when the do's and the don'ts, what you can and can't do. Those who have not gone through that process, they're the ones who have caused some issues. We have not had major issues, no. But the issues that we have had are primarily people who have not gone through the registration process.
And that starts from the very beginning, so that's a problem. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one question. With the golf carts, it says dusk to dawn as far as, or dawn to dusk, I mean, as far as when you can drive them. Is the the UTV similar to that we've
Yes.
already passed? Okay.
And that sunrise to sunset is right out of state statute. We cannot modify
Yep.
that.
Just verify that.
There's a variety of these things that are right out of state statute that some things we have some grace in, some things we don't.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. I want to allow time for public input. Is there anyone wishing to come forward to make comment?
Hello, my name's Luke Cruz, and I'm a resident of Norfolk, and I work for Cruz Custom Golf Cars. I'll keep this pretty short, but I just kind of wanted to, first of all, thank you guys for your service. It's been cool just kind of seeing how this process works, and I graduated from Norfolk Public in '01, went away to college, and then I kind of moved all over for 15 or 16 years, and I gotta admit, like when I came back in 16, I was a little worried. I was like, just don't know what I'm gonna do. So on the weekends, I was going to Lincoln and Omaha and Denver and stuff like that, and just how you guys have changed the community has been awesome. And I'm assuming that's a lot of you guys or your previous people in your role is what you brought. And now I can say I stay here on the weekends and I enjoy Norfolk as a home. I'm proud of it. And kind of what I see through my work and travel, so I've got a pretty large territory. I go into Kansas, South Dakota, all over Nebraska, and really it's quality of life, kind of like the stuff that I said as a community. I didn't really know, honestly, when we got into this, I thought I was going to be selling to golfers, and I don't sell that many to golfers. I sell them to people that use them to go visit their neighbors. I don't really, I guess probably the main concern I'm getting from you guys, I don't know if this is true, but if it's going to overburden the police department. And I haven't really seen where I deliver them, where people drive them through town. It's more like in their community. They just go get the kids and go visit the neighbors and go to an amenity, a pool or golf course or things like that is what I've seen. And people enjoy them. So I did talk to the city administrator of Hickman. Her name's Kelly. And I asked her, I'm like, first of all, I'm like, is there a safety problem? Are you having a lot of issues with calling into the police? And she said, no, it's they get a couple calls around the 4th of July. And she said, really, I'm like, how do you guys like them? Because I've got a lot of friends around that area. I used to live in Lincoln. And she's like, it's just added a lot of camaraderie to the community. She gave me an example of a street, I can't remember what it's called, but they own golf carts and they have a Facebook page, and apparently they just have a lot of fun with it. And then I talked to the mayor of Columbus, James, I'm not sure I pronounce his last name, Bulkley. And I asked him if he he said his police department wasn't worried about it. He said they didn't have any issues with the ATVs or UTVs or whatever they have legal there. They did not anticipate any issues with golf cars or PTVs. I kind of liked his approach. He said if issues did come up, they'd revisit them. I thought that was pretty common sense. I don't know. He seemed like a cool guy, and I thought that made sense. And I guess I was down in Augusta, Georgia last week, and I visited the plant. I talked with Club Cars lawyers and engineers and see what's coming out in the future. And LSVs and PTVs and golf carts, it's just kind of, it's such a huge industry with where, like, they're going into Europe, and it's real big in Europe with electric vehicles, and it's such a huge market that it's coming. And I don't know whether, I mean, we're in the middle of the country, we're going to be slower, but it is coming. They're coming out with some cool vehicles to meet this need, and I don't know. I see it. I didn't know before I did this for a living that was a thing, but it is a thing, and it kind of just adds a value to the community. Do you guys have any questions, like, on LSVs or PTVs or any of that?
Columbus had no issues
No.
so far.
No issues. They don't anticipate any issues. They said if there was issues, they'd revisit them.
Is theirs very similar to ours as far as you cannot pass a highway? Or
Yeah, I think I sent that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, but I can't find it.
It was similar.
Yeah. And they've had this ordinance for 2 years or a year.
Theirs is
Fairly recent.
it's fairly recent. Yeah, that's why they said that they don't anticipate issues, but if anything came up, they'd revisit it. But he said his police department was not concerned about it. But really, LSVs aren't really a big deal here yet, but they go about 5 miles an hour faster. There's a little bit different braking system, but it is coming down the pipeline, I guess.
And are the seatbelts, is that an issue with?
That's a
golf
good
carts?
question. So I visited again with the engineers and the lawyers. So especially Club Car, who I'm a dealer for, I would say they take safety. I mean, it's $1 billion company. If anything goes wrong, they're obviously liable for it. Right now, so some of them have seatbelts on them. Club Car doesn't. They find it, safety is their number one concern. They find it safer currently without seatbelts, with the only going up to 20 miles an hour and how they have them constructed. But they did say, actually, I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name, Dan Dykstra. He's an engineer for them out of Augusta, Georgia, and I talked to him this morning, and I was kind of telling him what we're doing here in Norfolk, because he's really big on this, and he got with BMW and design. There's gonna be some real cool stuff coming out. But they are aware of the seatbelt thing. They are. He said he's like, I'm gonna spend a couple $100,000 in the. Because I was giving him crap. I'm like, you have a cool job, man. He designs all this stuff, but they're looking. It's gonna be coming down in the near future where they're gonna be putting seatbelts on them. You can do aftermarket seatbelts. It's an easy thing to do, but some have seatbelts, some don't.
Is that something you would do at your facility, add seatbelts?
I've thought about this. I think legally, I think I would have. They're super easy to put on. I'd either have them do it themselves, or at this time I'd have another company do it. Just because, like I said, how they're designed. I mean, that's what they do for their living. They find currently they're safer without them. But they're looking at getting that technology to where they do have seatbelts. But at this time, I think I'd feel more comfortable having somebody else do that.
And what
just
brand,
not us.
What brands do you actually sell?
Icon, which it's an American company, but it's kind of a lot of the Chinese are coming in right now. They see an opportunity. And then a Club Car, which is out of Augusta, Georgia.
And do the Icon have seatbelts in them?
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
they do.
So this is maybe a follow-up question to Chief Miller, is if a Club Car comes in to be registered with the city, they do not have that seat belt, are you gonna approve that?
He brought up several good questions that I'd like to clarify on, the seatbelt being one of them. As far as the seatbelt question, it's in the ordinance that it's required to have headlights, taillights, turn signal, seatbelts. If they come in to get it registered without those items, they can't get it registered. It has to meet that criteria. A couple of things he brought up is the LSVs and the PTVs. LSV is a low-speed vehicle and a personal transport vehicle. And there's a lot of other states that are doing things in a lot of different ways, and of course, we have to follow Nebraska law. Low-speed vehicles do not fit the definition of golf cart, so they could not be registered under this ordinance. Now, there's another process for registering them if they want to go through the normal DMV process, but you can't register those as a golf cart. Personal transport vehicles are kind of hit and miss depending on the circumstances. Golf cart definition is 4 or less seating capability for 4 or less people. So if you have a 6-vehicle personal transport vehicle, or a golf cart for that matter, it can't be licensed under Nebraska state statute as a golf cart. So when people come in to register, it's going to be a process for us to determine, is this vehicle manufactured for less than 20 miles an hour? If it's registered for like a personal transport vehicle, 20 to 25 miles an hour, that doesn't fit the definition of golf cart, so we cannot license it under this ordinance. State statute doesn't allow us to.
Is that a VIN number? It'd be a low-speed vehicle. If it did not have a VIN number, it'd be a PTV.
It's based, the state statute says it's based on the speed capacity of what it's designed for, regardless of the VIN. And that's what's confusing, because you look at the brochures, it says, well, it's street legal. Well, it's street legal based on probably federal standards, not necessarily Nebraska state standards. So they're separate, and that's why it's really confusing. And it will be confusing if this progresses, because we need to, as the police department, determine if that, and there's gonna be frustrations, because somebody's gonna buy these new golf carts are really nice. And someone's gonna come in with a 6-passenger golf cart, pay top dollar, bring it in, and they can't register it to drive it on the street because it's a 6-passenger vehicle. And that doesn't meet the state statute. Regardless of how nice it is, how safe it is, it doesn't fit the statutory guidelines, and I can't fudge in what the state statute is. We can adjust our city ordinance piece, but I can't fudge on the state statute side of it. So that's one of the complexities. That's why I say this is a lot more complex than meets the eye, because a advertising brochure might say one thing, but state statute says something different. And that's where the PTVs and the LTVs or low-speed vehicles are not eligible. Personal transport vehicles, some of them are, some of them aren't, depending on what their manufactured speed is.
With all respect, I don't think so.
You guys will you have to take turns at the podium. Any other questions regarding golf carts?
Not for either one of those. This is for turning only. So are we trying to mimic the Nebraska state required minimum liability limits here with the 2550? And if so, would we not include 2550 UIM and uninsured motorists? That's under 24.37.
We'll let Danny look for that. In the meantime,
If I may, what's in there is what the state statute requires. If you wanted to go more, that's absolutely within the council's purview to do whatever you think is necessary. Also, if I could clarify one of the questions about crossing highways, that is out of state statute. That wording that's in there that's a state statute thing too, as far as crossing them, whether it's Columbus or not. And Columbus has went into effect, I think, this fall, so they haven't had a season yet to evaluate it.
okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Luke. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Okay. Seeing and hearing no one. Any further discussion, council? Okay. If not, short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to enact Chapter 24, Article 12 of the official city code to allow the operation of golf car vehicles on city streets and highways and setting forth the provisions under which golf car vehicles may be operated, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5821 carries on first reading.
All right, with that, we will move on to item number 22. I'll look for a motion to consider approval for amendment number 1 for engineering construction services with Olson Incorporated for the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project on Omaha Avenue for an amount not to exceed $16,800.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Do
We need a motion.
I hear a motion?
I'll make a
make a
motion
motion.
of consideration of approval of amendment 1 for the engineering construction services.
Second.
Motion second, and now for some background on this, Dennis Watts, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this was passed by council to do the job itself, the CIPP line in January 17th for municipal pipe and tool for $768,000. At that time, we talked we'd be coming back for a construction observation contract. And so we do have one in front of you. It's with Olson Engineering. And the engineer, Seth Lange, is here if you guys do have questions for him also. But basically, this would be a job, this would start about, we're hoping June, July timeframe. It would allow for up to about 80 hours of observation from the engineer, and then the city would be doing the rest of that. Look for it to probably be 4 or 5 weeks. So it'd be, not to exceed the $16,800. We think there'll be kind of a little heavy on the engineering observation on the front of the job, and then as we learn more of it, the city staff would pick up the rest of that. So it's kind of just, it's a fairly simple contract. Any questions myself or Seth Lange, the engineer, can answer you might have?
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Any
Thank you.
discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Any public input on this? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Item 23, I'd entertain a motion to consider approval to award a contract to Elkhorn Paving Construction Company Incorporated of Norfolk for the paving district number 520, Walters East Knolls 14th edition project for an amount of $249,267.35.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
Second.
Motion and second, and on this, looks like we'll be hearing from Anna Allen, our Assistant City Engineer. Welcome, Allen. Anna.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is to award a contract to Elkhorn Paving Construction for a paving district, and this is part of the Walters East Knolls 14th edition, which is on the northeast side of town. It's the section just south of Benjamin and east of Victory Road, just east of that church. So they're going to be expanding that subdivision there. Wanted us to put together a paving district. So we have it ends up being about 3 blocks worth of paving for that addition there. The developer is going to do their own water and sewer privately, but we're putting together the district. So there was 2 bidders, A&R Construction of Plainview, and the amount of $279,344.43. And the low bid was Elkhorn Paving for $249,267.35. The engineer's estimate was actually $300,299. So these bids came in well under the engineer's estimates. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And do you recall, I was looking for a map here, but is this paving district where it connects onto Benjamin now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so that it will connect to Benjamin going south a block, and then it'll go east a block, west a block, and then there'll be a section that they will continue to connect further west and then south again.
So I think it completes that neighborhood, if I'm thinking.
So yeah, where that ends up now, it kind of curves around to the north and to the west. So it'll extend to the west, go up to Benjamin, and then continue to west.
It's also important to note that this paving district will be assessed to the residential lots in that area. So
Correct.
as they sell lots, they'll close on portion of their bond.
And the timeline was, I believe they said mid-May to mid-June of constructing this. So I know people are eager to move out there and get their houses built.
It will help the congestion going down the other streets, definitely.
I'm sure it will, yes. Having that other outlet off of Benjamin will be helpful.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Any public input? Any further discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 24, we look for a motion to consider an agreement with Waterwise Landscapes coordinated by the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum and funded by the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy to reimburse the city of Norfolk up to $25,000 for eligible expenses associated with implementing the tree planting and lawn conversion cost share project.
I will make a motion to consider an agreement with Waterwise Landscapes.
Second.
Motion and second, and to hear some background on this, we'll hear from Nate Powell, our city Parks and Rec Director.
Mayor, Council, thank you. This is an agreement with the statewide, the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum in their Waterwise Landscape Program. They're providing the city with $25,000. These are non-matchable funds on our end. This will help fund our retree program that we've talked about earlier this year, and also implementing a lawn conversion program. So again, this program will offset the costs of our retree program, but it'll also add a new program, which would be a lawn conversion or rain gardens. And this is a lawn conversion would be changing your bluegrass to buffalo grass, or to a no-mow lawn, or creating rain gardens to collect rain and use that rainwater, effectively. Reimbursable examples include soil grading and to direct water, rain barrels and downspout extensions, eco-friendly lawns like buffalo grass, fine fescue, bee lawns, and no-mow lawns. The funds can also be provided for some educational programs that we can offer to the public as well. So work must be completed and funding requests into our Parks and Rec office by December 7th. The review process would be, you draw up some plans, you bring that to our office, and if we can get that approved for you, we will match up to $1,000 of what you spend. So if you spend $2,000 on the project, we can match $1,000 through this program. We will have $25,000 available for both programs, and it'll be on a first come, first served basis. And staff recommends approving this agreement with the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Any questions?
Is it a one-time grant or is it renewable?
All I know is it's one time this year, so I don't know if they do it annually or not yet.
And is there a limit, like 2 times they can apply for this?
A total would be 1,000 for that. So if
A
they
total of 1,000.
Yeah, that's set by us to at least spread it out.
Spread it out, correct.
Is that one time, or is that any given year?
We could do it in any given year, $1,000 match per property. Yeah.
For homeowners, not
Homeowners,
city
not
businesses.
commercial, that's correct.
Yep.
And then can you just also just reiterate again the tree program, how that works?
Yep, the retree program is for the terrace trees. We will reimburse 100% up to $100 to plant a tree in the terrace or within 10 feet of the curb. Yep.
This might be a dumb question, but a no-mow lawn, is that, if I want to put turf, astroturf, whatever you want to call it, instead of grass, is that the same thing?
I think that's
I'm getting
probably
lazy and
on
don't wanna
their,
mow more, guys.
they do have we will have this on our website. They do have what's reimbursable and what's not reimbursable. I don't see that as a reimbursable expense, so I would say no.
So it's,
Yeah.
I've been trying to no mow lawn for quite a few years now. You guys giving me
we've noticed.
gruff about it. Yeah.
We're gonna send you notices.
All right. But if you can crack the code on that, Nate, I'll be the first one to sign up.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Very good. I think these are great programs, Nate. I appreciate the initiative and the creativity and going out there to find partners to help fund these incentives. So, nice work.
Thank you.
Any public input on this? Any further discussion, council? If not, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 25, I would look for a motion to consider approval of an agreement with Kaboom Incorporated in partnership with Integrity Marketing Group, a Dallas-based firm with 2 local partners, McMill CPAs and Advisors and Premier Marketing, to construct a new play space at Liberty Bell Park for an amount not to exceed $8,500.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
Second.
Motion and second. For some background on this, we'll hear from PJ Evans, or Parks and Rec Department. Good evening.
Mayor and council. I'm here to present the Kaboom agreement for new playground equipment to be designed, planned, and built at Liberty Bell Park. Before I get to the contract, I'd like to bring up the 2 representatives from a Dallas-based firm, McMill CPAs and Advisors and Premier Marketing, Mary Ellis and Casey Dowd, to talk about the partnership.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Casey Dowd, and I am the Vice President of Operations at Premier, the integrity-based company that is locally here. We are actually the founding partners of Integrity, and we have a large stake within the Integrity family. We are excited about the opportunity to partner with the city and this Kaboom project to help bring our team members together to give back to the community. Integrity's been very strong in making sure our employees are involved in volunteer projects, and this is going to give them the opportunity to build a park. So, yeah.
Awesome. So Mary Lise Farah, and I'm here on behalf of Integrity out of Dallas, and it's such an honor to be here, and we're so privileged to have the opportunity to, everything that Casey just said, invest in the community where we have so many employees who live and work and earn a living here. So we're just thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Parks and Rec and Kaboom, and I think PJ is going to tell you a little bit more about that, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present.
Could you ladies sign in quick?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Well, thank you very much for being here and for entering into this partnership. It's a big deal. I think, like you said, PJ is going to tell us a little bit more about the scope. And the agenda item here is a little bit deceiving because, as I understand it, the scope is much greater than $8,500.
Yes, it is. The financial obligation of the city is $8,500, which we have in the capital improvement funds for Liberty Bell Park. We're excited and thankful for this opportunity. This will be a wonderful event to bring the community together and give the community the opportunity to be part of the process. Staff recommends entering into this agreement with Kaboom for the design and installation of the playground equipment at Liberty Bell Park. With the design and the build, the kids get to design the playground, and then a group of adults get together and kind of scale that down and put it all together, and then there's a build week. Do you guys have any questions?
Do we have to help?
If you would like to volunteer, yes.
I think they'd rather us not.
I just think it's a neat program and a neat part of the community and appreciate being involved in our community.
Yes, it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm really excited.
Any other questions or comments, council? Well, again, thank you both for this partnership. We're really excited to see what it brings forth. And again, commend the Parks and Rec Department for working with community partners to bring new things in terms of recreation to the community. So we very much, again, appreciate your support in this. Thank you. Any public input? Any further discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 26 would look for a motion to consider approval to place a sculpture at the 25th and Benjamin Avenue roundabout at the request of the Norfolk Arts Council.
I'll make a motion to consider the approval to place a sculpture at 25th and Benjamin.
Second.
Motion and second. And again, to hear some background on this, Nate Powell, please.
Mayor and council, this is a sculpture that was purchased by the Arts Council for $12,500, and they decided they wanted to place it at the roundabout at 25th and Benjamin, which you see in the photos there. We would provide a rock, a red rock that we can pick out from the River Project, I think, and as a base to set that sculpture on. The Arts Council does have a $25,000 annual budget of Keno dollars that's available to them to make these purchases, and this is one of the items that they did purchase. And there is also a gentleman here from the Arts Council, Mr. Ben Collins, that if you have any questions for him, he'd be happy to speak to that. So.
Any questions? Just for those who don't have an agenda packet in front of them, this is the owl sculpture that is currently in downtown Norfolk, correct?
Who?
The owl. Good.
I had.
Yeah.
That was pretty quick.
That was good.
That was pretty quick.
How do you follow that?
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done here. Yes, I believe that was confirmation. That is the owl sculpture being placed at the Benjamin Roundabout. Any other questions?
Nate, I got one question. In the placement of this, in that roundabout, will that juniper bush need to be removed in order for it to plant, or before the rock and the owl to sit down?
I was looking at over the weekend, and I think that the rock can get above it. You probably won't see the rock though. If you want to see the rock, you would have to remove it. But
No. I'm saying is the juniper bush going to have to be removed? That's in the center on the top of that retaining wall.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Okay. Which way is it going to face?
South.
I think the consensus is south.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Good. Thanks, Nate. Thank you, Ben, for being here. Public Arts Council taking initiative on this. Any public input? Hearing none. Any further discussion, council?
I'd just like to make a comment. I think it's kind of nice to expand some of these sculptures and art throughout Norfolk instead of just concentrated to the what appears to be more the downtown area. So I do like the idea here that we're spreading it out, similar to like 7th and Paswalk, and I just think it looks nice. So just want to make that comment.
I agree.
I
Any
wish
other
it was
discussion?
closer to my house. You can put it in my front yard if you want, but face west, not south. It looks nice. The owl's pretty cool. We like driving by and seeing that one.
Anything further, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 27 would entertain a motion to consider approval to purchase a landscape structures playground with outdoor recreation products through a Sourcewell contract with state bid pricing in the amount of $122,378.40 plus $4,550 freight for a total of $126,928.40 to be placed at Warren Cook Park.
I'll make a motion for consideration of approval.
Second.
Motion and second. And Nate, once more. Background on this, please.
Okay, Mayor, Council, one last item here. So this is a playground for the Warren Cook Park. If you're familiar with the story walk trail that we're putting in at the park, this playground would go in the center of that space. This is the north. Those that aren't familiar with Warren Cook, it's the grass or the open space just north of the library. So again, this would be placed right around the center. The budget here, we have $73,015.42 remaining in the library renovation and expansion project that'll be used for this playground. And then we'll also use an additional $53,912.98 from Keno Park and Playground Enhancement Funds that we have available. We will have a savings of $40,000 because we are installing this ourselves. Having the right equipment and training for our staff has been very helpful. The design is in your packet. This is for ages 6 months to 12 years. I believe this might be the youngest playground that we'll have in city parks. If you see the shaded gray areas in there, we have some new equipment that we have, but we haven't used on previous projects. It'd be some spinners and lily pads. And so staff recommends moving forward with the Sourcewell contract. It's a state bidding contract for the playground with landscape structures.
Nate, is there a walkway from, I mean, if they're gonna park in the normal library parking, is there a walkway to it, or do they have to go through the library to get to it?
So that new
Just across the
new
grass?
pathway that we're putting
Right.
around will go all the way around.
All right, does that go to, say, a sidewalk or parking lot
Yes,
then?
that's correct. We'll make sure it does, yep.
They were, we still got that walking, reading area thing we were doing, correct? Is that all?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
That's already been bid out, and that should be, I don't know, probably this spring here shortly, yep.
Okay.
And that'll basically go around
Mm-hmm.
this area.
Yep.
Is that circle around the playground on the plans? Is that what that is?
That's not the circle, that's just the space that we need for that playground. There's plenty of room.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we know the anticipated delivery date?
4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
I thought it'd be longer than that.
No.
And Nate, with playground equipment like this, what's your maybe expected life expectancy of something like that?
15 years is generally for a playground, but you'll see us stretch that into 20 years usually. But 15 to 20 years is the lifespan of a playground. Yep.
Thank you.
Nate, I know you mentioned this just a little bit ago. What was the cost savings by having our own staff install this?
It was 40,000, I believe it was. I want to say it was 28% cost to install of the project. But we used to hire someone from Omaha to come up and install the playgrounds.
Okay.
It's a significant savings. Any other questions, council? Again, Nate, appreciate the creativity here in making use of what is now dead space. That will be a recreational area for families to enjoy for generations to come. So, any public input on this? Any further council discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 28, would look for a motion to consider approval of amendment number 1 to the original engineering services agreement with JEO Consulting Group Incorporated for Johnson Park Final Design Project for an amount of $44,500.
I'll make a motion to consider approval of amendment number 1 to the original engineering service agreement with JEO.
Second that.
Motion second, and for some background on this, we'll hear from Steve Ramus, our Public Works Director.
Mayor and Council, this amendment was originally brought to Council on December 5th. After discussion at that time, it was tabled. Subsequently remaining on the table, the action died. As a function of that conversation on December 5th, we as staff committed to going back, working with JEO analyzing that, the information around the design amendment, and then coming back to represent the amendment. At this time, the amendment is for a total of $44,500. The original amendment had a basis of $89,820 for design services related to changes in the Johnson Park design as well as additions to the Johnson Park design. There was an additional $10,000 included in the original amendment should we as a city desire to have an update of conceptual drawings for any reason. We've decided that at this point in the project, there's really no reason for that. We're trying to get this thing wrapped up and on the street for bids and go to construction. Following the conversation in December, we did meet as staff with JEO and agreed to cut out some items. We got that down to about $59,000 at that point. Pulled in council subcommittee for the infrastructure subcommittee. We met on February 13th in a meeting. JEO came down, both Kevin Cruz and Ty Hevlin came down for some very detailed discussion around the amendment. Ty Hevlin is here tonight for questions. He is sitting in the audience. The changes are attached. The changes and modifications are attached to the agenda that are included in amendment number 1. A couple things that I would point out relative to this that maybe aren't quite as visible here. Some of the major changes as we went into this, the concept for the water feature and the potential for winter ice was a combined feature where we would incorporate sort of fake ice over the water fountain. As a function of working with the Parks Director during final design, we pulled that apart and created just a separate water feature. And then there is a relocation of the basketball court that sits up in the northeast corner. That basketball court will move kind of to the middle of the park on the north side where the existing parking lot is. It will have the refrigeration system built into it to freeze water over the top of the basketball court during the winter for that winter ice component. Another change there was there's what I call a bowl that sits on the east side of the park. And that was we had several conversations around the final design of the bowl. It's fairly steep off of, I think it's Oak Street over there. And it's a fairly steep drop down into that old bowl. It's part of the old Ox Bowl. The amphitheater sat sort of in the northeast corner of that. We ended up pulling that amphitheater out, centering that in the park just south of where this ice skating feature basketball court will be. So sort of just south of that existing gravel parking lot. That freed up that bowl area, and that area is currently being designed out as an area for natural play features. So that was one of the changes. Along with that, we also ended up pulling out, we had a driveway / trail that came down into the park off of that new parking lot. That was a way for food trucks and stuff to get down in there for various park activities. And again, as a function of preserving that bowl, we pulled that out. There'll be another route for trucks to get down into that. Well, we're not going to be allowing trucks down into that bottom area. The food trucks will stay up on that existing parking lot area there to the north. So those were a couple of some of the major design changes there. I just wanted to put those out so that there was some understanding around that. I can answer questions around this. Again, Nathan can answer some questions around this if necessary, and Ty Hevlin is here to speak to the amendment as well.
Thank you, Steve, for that background. Any questions, council, for staff or for Ty from JO? Any public input on this?
Hi, I'm Kim Davis. I live across the street from Johnson Park. A couple months ago, plans got out that showed a public restroom right outside my front window. I just wanted on record that that is not going to happen now.
That is correct.
It is not going to happen.
That is correct.
No, I want to hear.
It's not going to happen.
There's not going to be a public outhouse on the corner of Oak and Prospect.
That is correct. That was part of our planning process as we looked at that North Park area. We are taking the restroom out that is up there. We had discussions and looked at the relocation of a restroom, but as a function of this project, there is no restroom, no.
So just out of curiosity and for saving time, why would we remove that other restroom? Why are we going to have people who are playing in the northwest corner of the park have to walk all the way over to the southeast corner of the park to use the restroom when we have one centrally located? It may be outdated. We could update. I mean, all the pipes and stuff are there. Why isn't that being considered?
I don't know, Nathan, you want to take that one, or you want me to take that one?
Yep, so what we were looking at is adding a second restroom, but what we were waiting for is to bid, just to see where things are and see where we could install one and what we could do. The old one does have to be removed because of the location of the basketball court now, but if we put in a new restroom, we would have to revisit a location for that, but it's not in this phase of this project at all. So,
okay.
yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Kim. Right. Any other public input?
Jim McKenzie. I just have some questions about the process for how this came about. It seems like the plans were 85% complete, and then suddenly there's a change that comes about. So who calls a meeting and who decides that we now want to make these changes?
So as we entered August with the 85% plans, those plans, I would say, substantially represented the pre-planning work and the community input that was done back in 2021, spring of 2021. After that public input and moving that forward, certainly we hired a new park director during that time. The project continued to develop at a not significant change. Some of these changes that I talked about in here kind of came about as new staff and new ideas. There were still questions about the final design as we went into August, and there was a desire to reassemble and look at that final design as it laid out in the park. We went out, and I think our staff surveyor went out there and laid out all the features in that northern area as staff, Parks Department, some elected officials. We went out there and walked the site. As a function of walking the site, there were some changes specifically to the trails, getting down into that bowl area. The conversation occurred at that time around preserving the bowl for the natural play feature type park. The location of the amphitheater was also discussed. And so at that time, we were looking at kind of trying to wrap the project up and get the project out for bids in October. And so seeing those changes as reasonably what appeared to be to us is reasonably minor changes in terms of some of that shift. We made those shifts. The conversation about the basketball court, relocating the basketball court, really expanding the function and purpose of that, separating I think we'd already made the decision to separate the artificial ice from the ice feature earlier that summer. But those, as we address those changes, again, we were trying to get the project out to bids in October so that we could have the project substantially completed this year. JEO went in and did work on those and brought them back, and there was a series of conversations and a series of iteration changes to those plans that ultimately resulted in the final set we have today.
I guess the concern that I have is that somebody decides that we're going to make these changes, and I guess it's you and Parks Director and somebody else, that we've already completed this thing to 85% completion. I don't doubt that JEO did the work. In fact, they probably could justify the original $99,000, which was a 30% increase on the bill, that we've negotiated it down, which is good, but how do we have a process where we're able to incur significant additional dollars of expenditures? Did we ask JEO what that increase might be?
At the time, Jim, we didn't. I don't think JEO nor us thought that change would be that extensive in terms of staff time. Certainly, I would say to you, we recognize that as a function of that, the scope and magnitude of what it took to make those changes, would we do that differently? Yes. Would we ask for dollars up front, and will we going forward? Yes.
Okay. So then my next question is, where will that extra $44,500 come from? In the past, when we had additional expenditures, we said, okay, we're going to cut something else to accommodate that. Has there been any thought given to that?
So what it is, I'm carrying $100,000 in the budget for construction administration services and just engineering services in general. There'll be some testing, concrete testing and stuff we need to bring up. So it would come out of there. One of the things that we are tracking, we had the conversation here to combine structures 1 and 2 and generate some cost savings. We are still, as staff, looking at some substantial cost savings in a reduction of rock, and we'll be having some more conversation about that. But I'm very confident that there are six-figure sums to be saved in the project with some increased construction administration around the rock infill into the banks, and the rock that's going in between structure 5 is the last structure there to the east that we built last fall. Between that structure and all the way through the bridge and really even up into structure 3, that's almost a solid rock bank on both the north and south side of the river, around the beach area, along the trail. We think we can still accomplish that without changing the look and feel of that, but see, potentially $200,000 to $300,000 in additional savings as we go forward. So the money's there. I mean, it's still, if we didn't have the cost, it would be potentially additional cost savings in there. This is a very, and granted, the river in-stream improvements aren't necessarily Johnson Park. It's all kind of tied together, though. The river project itself is very, very unique, and there's not a lot of that activity going on. So certainly, we are learning as staff. Our consultants are learning as we're working through it. And so again, within the bigger $9.3 million project that's going on out there right now, plus this piece here that's going to get bid out for somewhere around $3.4 million, we're not going to increase the cost of the project.
That was my last question. Are there going to be any additional costs related to these changes in the project?
I don't see that. This is a fairly straightforward project: grading, trail, sidewalk, trail lighting, sidewalk lighting, the pedestrian bridge. That's probably the most difficult piece that'll go, the pedestrian bridge over the river there at Structure 5. I mean, I can't tell you we're not going to need to increase the length of the pile or something like that in there, but I wouldn't see anything in there that's going to jeopardize where we are budgetarily right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other public input on this?
I just have to say one thing. I think the way this went, the place of events, how we got here. Obviously, we got here, and it was a change order we weren't anticipating. I think there were some valid points brought up now. I think moving forward, we will be looking at obviously how things are done. This is a major project in a park renovation that really doesn't happen very often in a community our size, correct? So I think there was just a little bit of oversight there, and I think with that being said, GAO came with their change order, right, of $99,820 at the time. You guys took 10 off the top, and you went to subcommittee, right? And then it went to subcommittee because we tabled it. And the subcommittee sat, I think that meeting was about a 3.5-hour meeting. I wasn't in it. 3 of the gentlemen were in it that are sitting up here. And with the help of staff, GAO and the subcommittee, they dropped that $55,320 to get it to more of a reasonable, palatable number that I think with what Steve was just talking about will fall within the overall budget of that park. Again, I think the process worked when it comes to situations where you get numbers that it kind of blows you away a little bit when you see the cost on things. But this process worked, and thank you to the subcommittee for getting that number down. Just want to make that statement.
It's well said. I can attest to that. It was about 3.5 hours. It was a comprehensive discussion. I think it's also important to note this project, there's been a long runway. I mean, we started talking about planning for this project in 2017. The master plan was designed in 2018. We got to 60%, 68% design just earlier last year. And so inevitably some change is going to occur. And I think we ran into that. Often these are not perfect processes, but I think we came to a place where everybody agrees that the final product is going to be better than what was originally planned, and we've come to a reasonable agreement on how to move forward so we can get to bids and start to get to work on construction. So I think in the end, all's well that ends well. Any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 29, would look for a motion to consider resolution 2023-13, pledging to contribute an amount up to $150,000 of city funds to Norfolk Area Transit to aid Norfolk Area Transit in reaching their goal of raising $500,000 in order to receive a matching grant funds from the Johnny Carson Foundation.
I'll make a motion to resolution number 2023-13.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. I think to kick off this discussion, we are going to hear from Norfolk Area Transit, represented by Bob Bourne. And I'll have you introduce yourself as well.
Katie Salerno.
Katie, okay. Thank you for being here.
This is hot off the presses.
Okay, Mayor and Council, happy to be here this evening. My name is Bob Bourne. I'm part of the mobility management team. Can we get that hooked up into the...
Yeah, I'm working on it.
To do something? Something magical will happen here.
Yes.
Okay, tonight we're going to talk about Norfolk Area Transit. Our mobility management team, there's 5 people on it. We're contracted with the Nebraska DOT to work on this project. We're going to talk about the recent activities and then our next steps and then open to discussion. So a lot of things have happened in the last couple of weeks. We hired a CPA firm to handle all the financial activities. Worked with two banks on to how to structure debt. And the Nebraska DOT is working with the mobility management team. And we're reviewing all the accounts, invoices, billings, receipts. There were quite a few of those that the former management did not apply for reimbursement for. So we're working through that. It's a very tedious process to do that, to separate what was applied for reimbursement and what wasn't applied. So it's a slow process. Ponca Express has picked up a few passengers. We ended service on January 6th. And with your action back then of paying the year's contribution, we were able to pay all the employees. So all our employees are up to date on their paychecks for hours worked. The board priorities have been raising funds. They've been very busy on that, reaching out to a lot of different organizations. We do want to pay our vendors. We have quite a few outstanding invoices. And then we want to get the buses running. So we have a 3-year sustainability plan, and that was a request from the council and from many people a couple of weeks ago. So the plan is a smaller bus system than we had. What they had done is they built this out without adequate local funding. The local funding is 25% of the cost, varying on some of the costs are some of the costs are 20%, some are 10% local, but the majority of it is 25% local. And then the feds in the state pay anywhere from 90, 80, or 75%. And the federal and state government has said they'll continue to fund at those rates. So the smaller service plan is our telelift, which is our door-to-door service. We will continue that. We will run only Route 2. We had 3 routes before. We're going to just run Route 2. And that route will run every 30 minutes in the early morning from like roughly 6 to 9, and in the afternoon from roughly 2:30 to 5:30, and then it'll be every 45-minute interval during the middle of the day. We will have one bus out on the evening service on the night lift, and that's a demand response service. Most of the people riding that are going home from work for the most part. And then our regional services, Route 5 goes down to Madison. It's focused on Tyson, getting workers from that live here in Norfolk getting down there. And then there are a few people that ride northbound from Madison to come up into Norfolk. So we have that. There's 3 buses in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then there's one for the second shift that ends about midnight or so to get people back here into town. Route 6 is and then there's also a bus that goes down to Lindsay from town here. That's on Route 5. Route 6 is Great Dane and into Wayne, and that serves both shifts at Great Dane. So what they had done is essentially had a roughly $3.5 million budget. We're trimming that down to roughly $2.5 million. We've streamlined the staffing. There'll be fewer administrators, quite a few administrators, streamlining the dispatch, and we've changing the driver's schedules so that the schedules will be when most of the passengers were riding. There were some times where we measure the driver productivity and the number of people they pick up per hour, per payroll hour, and our goal is to get that between 2 and 3 pickups per hour. We have accounting procedures in place. The board has reviewed their financial procedures, and will approve that on this Thursday. And then as the local share becomes available, then we will add some extra services in years 2 and 3. So we've outsourced the financials. We have weekly board meetings. The mobility management team is in place. We have a lot of good operations. The drivers and dispatchers did a very good job. We have some oversight on that. What's probably most interesting is the bylaws allow anywhere from 7 to 15 directors. We have several board members here. as well as drivers, dispatchers, supervisors, and even I think a passenger or two there. So we have new members on the board. The city council can appoint a board member, and then there is one other board member that expects to join in this spring. And then the current board is willing to transition. So where we are in the financing now, it's about $250,000. Most of it is hard money. There's a couple that are contingent upon service starting, some of the donations on that. What I found really interesting is there's over 57 different donors, so that really is a healthy mix of, well, government, of course, here, but we have private for-profit businesses, we have social service agencies, we've got churches, and we got a lot of individuals that are contributing funding to it. So it's a wide range of funding sources, which is a good, a healthy indicator. The board is still reaching out to other potential funders. We got a week left to meet the match challenge from the Johnny Carson Foundation. So if everything goes together, then we look for March 13th as our launch on it. We know that there's a lot of drivers anecdotally have gotten other jobs, dispatchers have gotten other jobs. So once we get the green light, we're going to contact everybody. We have a recall plan, and then once we contact people, we'll know how many people are coming back, and then we'll be able to start the service. And if not everybody comes back, then we'll be hiring. And several people we know have gone on to get their CDL through Northeast, which is really good for them and going to be good for us. So that's the overview. We're asking for $150,000. And I'll take as many questions as you want. And and we have people to, I don't know your order on how you do that. Questions?
We'll take public input, yeah.
Go
ahead.
You want to start?
One question I had in terms of impact on community since the suspension, it opened my eyes personally as this system started to grow and then it went away, just how much use there was across the different services. Can you tell us, and I think we've seen some of these numbers, but can you give a reminder of how many rides were being provided on any given day when this was going across all the different services?
Yeah, we were up in the 9,000 to 10,000 rides per month on that. So Sundays was maybe 40, 45, Saturdays was around 50 to 60. Weekdays varied. Mondays and Wednesdays, for some reason, were busier than the other days of the week. So we had some days with over 400 rides on it. And then we had a lot of school kids. We were doing 2,000 rides a month in Norfolk, and we had a run up to Pierce. It was carrying 1,500, if I recall correctly, on that. So that's the kind of the magnitude on that. 1,500 per week, I'm sorry, or per month, 1,500 per month, not per day.
I just got a few questions, so if you want to cut me off, I come back, that's fine. But just from people obviously contact us, there's probably people in the crowd going to ask some of the same questions. But you talked about a smaller vehicle fleet. Is there a plan to sell some of the vehicles that you have, and the trolley keeps coming up also? Is there a plan to get have a smaller fleet here?
There would be a smaller fleet, right? And we've gone through the analysis on that. Those big buses they bought from Omaha and Lincoln, really the only place that they're really needed is to go up to Pierce. They were using one of them to go to Tyson's, but then the population declined on that. So we do have 30 passenger buses. There's different levels of CDL. So we have 30 passenger non-air brake buses, and we can use those. So we're going through the process now and reduce the number of those large buses, the Omaha Lincoln buses. But we may need one additional of that 30 passenger non-air brake bus. So we have that. We're going to read, the fleet efficiency was not that good, so the fleet utilization was not good. We've got some plans in place for that. So the total vehicle fleet will be reduced. As far as the trolley goes, that was being used for charters. And as a private nonprofit business, you can do charters, but you have to have a set of accounts set up so that the accounting for the charters is completely different than the transit. The federal money can't be used in the charters because then you're competing with private businesses that operate charters. So the recommendation is to not do charters, and then that would mean that the trolley would either be used in regular service or sold off. So it's under discussion. It's premature to, I can't say for sure we'll get rid of it, but the usage of it, I can't see a purpose for it.
So it wouldn't be used for the charters anymore?
Right, there will be no charters. Now, if you want to, if the board wants to get into charters, it would be done the right way with proper accounting and all that stuff. That's very tedious, but it can be done, and it is legal to do that as long as you account for it and don't use any federal or state money in it.
So another one, sorry guys, I really do have a few. Still provide service for the Pierce Public School, or I assume it was public schools, but the Pierce children go to school?
Well, we're going to have a discussion with, we call those the regionals that go out of town, and we're going to have an agreement that we're working up now, and if they want to fund that, then yes, we will, and if they don't want to fund it, we won't.
Okay.
We have a cost model that has fixed cost and variable cost. The fixed cost is the management, the supervisors, that doesn't change proportionate to the number of drivers you have. And then we have the driver cost with a benefit package, and then we have the maintenance cost. So we can calculate pretty well what it would cost for that Pierce route, and then for the marginal cost, and then we add in a proportion of the fixed cost, and then we have to add in a proportion of the capital cost because we want to have a replacement fund. We only pay 10% of the cost of the bus, but they're just open bids in Illinois, and buses that cost $220,000 last year or $410,000 this year. So we've got to be capturing some capital funds on that.
So I guess this one's off the cuff then, but so it'd be the same whether you're talking Tyson or Great Dane?
It's proportional to the mileage, and it's proportional to the number of trips.
But I mean, the same concept you're thinking would be?
Right, yeah, the same mathematical model works, right.
Yep. Okay.
Right.
Cost per ride, I've had a few people that, and myself included, I guess, if I got charged $2 or $5 or whatever it might be to get a ride home at night, I'm willing to pay it. Is there a plan to have a cost per ride, whether it's minimal or what that
for
accounts
passenger fares?
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to go.
We can't do free forever. That's why I'm asking.
Right. Yeah, no, that, and our telelift always had a fare. The forklift, the fixed routes, was free as an introduction.
Okay.
I can't remember who now. Someone paid for, Healthy Blue, I think, paid for students, K-12 students, to ride free. And that will continue because that was through May. But people like you and me will pay $1 as the fare on forklift, $2 on telelift.
Yeah, so I think veterans were free or something like that also.
Yeah, and veterans are free
those
also,
keep
yeah.
going. Yeah. And then the last one I had was, if there was a public member that would want to be on the board, is there a way to go through that process and possibly get on the board also?
Well, I believe it's an application process to the board, and then I believe the board votes on it. And don't quote me on that, I have to read the bylaws on that, but that's the normal process. So you would contact the board president, say you're interested. I believe we have 14 members now, and the bylaw says 7 to 15.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob, I do have a question. So you were talking about streamlining, so potentially less vehicles.
Right.
Buses, right? How many do you anticipate you would use less?
Well, I would like to get rid of the 7 big buses instantly. We have, buses are in various conditions, and the maintenance wasn't done in the last month on them. So we've got to get them over to Graham and figure out which ones are in the best condition. We'll do a fleet assessment on it. And then we have to decide for years 2 and 3, there was additional services. So if we shrink the fleet too much and more money comes in, then we don't have vehicles. And it's really hard to get even used vehicles now. So there may be some that we would put into sort of a mothball, kind of a storage thing for a while until we assess over the next year what the local share is going to be. And the sustainable plan is really good for the first year. In the second and third year, it's based on increased contributions from the local funders. So if those don't come through, then we can shrink that fleet even more. But I really can't give you a number because we have a mix of automobiles, vans, and minibuses.
Well, you did kind of answer that question because my next question to you was, why would you not sell some of these to raise the funds that you are needing?
Yeah, it's when you sell a used vehicle, you recover some money. You'll do okay on it. Depends who you sell it to. Depends how you sell it. If it has federal interest in it, there's a prescribed procedure you have to follow. Some of these vehicles were purchased with local funds with no federal or state funds, so those can be sold really quickly. And then you could just ask for bids here locally and sell it. But with the federal sale, it's a lot more difficult on that. And I don't remember the number of federally funded vehicles. It's like 15 or something like that. So, but we want to streamline the fleet so that we are not maintaining vehicles that are surplus. But at the same time, we have a lot of old vehicles. We got some buses with a lot of miles on them beyond their design life. The design life, like for a minivan, in most places is 4 to 5 years. In Nebraska, it's 8 years, and we have some that are pushing that 8 years, and they're worn out. So we're just going to run them to the end, basically.
Final question then. So one of the differences you noted was the accounting. You're now having outside accounting procedures. Was that different than what you did initially?
Initially.
Well, you noted as a difference here, and it says you have outside accounting procedures.
Right, yeah, we've contracted with McMill to go through some forensics on it and then establish procedures, and that's what the board's voting on this week, is our financial procedures based on best practices.
Thank you.
Are there any liens on any of the vehicles currently?
Yes, the Elkhorn Valley has liens on most of them, or many of them. The lien on a federally funded vehicle, you can only lien 10%, is only 10% because 90% is state and federal.
Right.
But the locally purchased ones there's liens on all of them.
Bob, if the money was raised and the Carson match was released, how long do you anticipate the system taking to get back up?
Well, it depends on how many people come back to work. If next Tuesday we have all the money in place, we would start calling people on Wednesday and we would phase it in. There were some inefficiencies in dispatching, not caused by the dispatchers, but caused by the software wasn't as effective as it could be. So we have to get with the software vendor and make sure that the parameters work for us. That's going to take a day or two. Fewer dispatchers, we have to walk them through the whole process again. So the goal is the goal is March 13th, Monday the 13th. But we would start calling people back Wednesday, March 1st.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a couple questions. So Tyson, Lindsay, and Great Dane, to the original start, they would not be involved in the original start, or would those regional trips start right away as well?
We got to get the vehicles into either Graham's or Pinkelman to make sure they're in good shape. And as soon as the vehicles are in good shape, and if those are CDL, most of those are CDL drivers. If the CDL drivers come back, we would start that as soon as we could.
So do you have any new contributions from Tyson, Lindsay, or Great Dane?
Yes. Okay. I believe Great Dane paid their entire amount. Tracy might have to answer that. And then we've asked Lindsay, and Lindsay's very supportive of this, and then we've asked Tyson. So we're going to have a more formalized contract with payments per month or per quarter, and have that all worked out. So we're just not going to start service without without financial protection.
Do the new contributions help with the, with raising the 500,000?
Yes. Some of it is for the operations, and then some of the contribution over and above is for the towards the 500.
Okay. You made a comment earlier. You said you have 250,000, but it's not all hard money. How much, as of 5 o'clock today when you walked in, what was hard money?
I believe it was about 210, if I recall.
Okay. Okay. You know, it doesn't matter how you want to look at this. This is my opinion, and I've been back and forth on this several times. It doesn't matter how you look at this. Everybody in this room, everybody in this community, everybody in this region is a victim of this unfortunate circumstance. And when I say victim, I mean it didn't matter where you were in this. But I've had multiple people reach out within the last couple of days, and more recently, the last 24 hours. And I said, we need to do what we can for the community. We need to do what we can to get the unfortunate that can't provide transportation for themselves for whatever reason. And I said, we need to help them. And I said we were all victims, and my words got turned on me. And one of the persons had said, if we were worried about being a victim, what about the rest of us that are taxpayers and we're giving, and now you guys as a city council are going to give $150,000 as a contribution, or we're gonna come up to $150,000. I guess how do I answer that question to the people that said we support it, but we've done enough on the $150,000 contribution?
Yeah, that's a difficult question.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's a fraud, okay, number one.
Okay, so can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Insurance then.
Right, we did not have fraud insurance. We had all kinds of insurances, but we did not have a fraud insurance policy.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. So it becomes philosophical. If you're a victim of a crime, which the community is a victim of the crime, and you don't have someone that's going to make you whole on it, then, it's just like if you got knocked over the head when you're walking down the street and someone takes your wallet, on a different scale, then you don't get reimbursement for that. So it's really a community discussion on that. The way I look at it is, like I said, there's 57 people that are organizations that are contributing to this. You can't please everybody all the time. So if you do, you can do it on a per capita basis, or I don't know how you can figure those things out any way you want, and say for $6 per person in town, you're going to reestablish the bus service. I mean, that's one way to look at it. But there's no way to, people that are against it, a lot of them you can't convince, you know what I mean?
I don't think they're saying that they're against it. What I think what this person's point was is that as a city council and as a taxpayer of the city of Norfolk, I've done enough. You guys have done enough. And I told them, I said, this will stand alone if we can get it off the ground. Let it stand alone then. We don't need the contribution, is his point. And I had several of these.
Well, your contribution of $150,000 out of $1 million is 15%, okay? So there's not many other places where you can leverage that kind of 7-to-1 ratio. And that's one way to look at it, is the investment of the $150,000 leverages the other money. If you don't contribute the $150,000, the whole thing may collapse. We don't get to the 500 local, we don't get the 500 match. So that 150, you can look at it not so much as seed money, but just part of the participation on it, along with all the other people that are participating on it. Will that sell that person who's against it? Hard to tell. But that would be the argument that you would make, is you're not carrying all the weight on it, you're carrying a proportion of the weight on it. There's no easy way to get through to some people. Yeah, yeah.
I would note too that previous contributions to this on behalf of the city, a portion of those did come from ARPA funds, which are still taxpayer dollars, but were leveraged locally for different assistance projects, including this one. And in terms of how we would potentially meet this obligation of up to $150,000, that those funds are on the table again, because there's still about $1 million left uncommitted in ARPA funds in Norfolk. And Danny, maybe it's a good time to break in here and talk a little bit about how this particular resolution saying that the city, if need be, in filling the gap, would contribute up to $150,000 was framed up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can certainly do that. So what you have before you, it's a resolution that authorizes a one-time contribution of up to, but no more than $150,000 to NFAT, North Fork Area Transit. The contribution is based on conversations during a subcommittee meeting on February 13th, at which time representatives from the state mobility management team, including Mr. Bourne, came to have a conversation with elected officials about this need for $500,000 in order to obtain the Carson Foundation match. So as this resolution is structured, in order to get up to $150,000, there are three contingencies that must first be met. First, the city intends for its cash infusion to be the final match or the final piece of the $500,000 puzzle. This means that in order for NFAT to get up to $150,000 from the city of Norfolk, NFAT has to raise the remaining $350,000 from other sources. The second contingency is that NFAT has to appoint one city council person to their board, and as Mr. Bourne has already alluded to, those conversations are underway and that will be happening in short order. Third, the final contingency that must be met before the city contribution is that NFAT agrees to the termination of the current public transportation funding agreement that was put into effect in October of 2021. This agreement obligates the city to contribute $108,333 annually, which is adjusted for inflation upwards. Since the inception of the agreement, and including the cash infusion by the City Council on December 16th, 2022, the city has contributed approximately $427,000 to NFAT. By including the contingency within this resolution that terminates the existing funding agreement, this will allow the council the ability to weigh heavily the performance of the new and improved NFAT when considering future funding agreements. So we could certainly see how the next year goes if NFAT gets back up and running, and then take that into consideration in drafting and approving another funding agreement, an ongoing funding agreement, either later this year or in 2024.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bob while he's up here?
I got something here. So I've got a little bit of a unique perspective in this whole deal. When this whole started, we went out and got a bus or transit bus. And just to help out the people that we knew we were going to have to provide rides for. I get your frustration, Corey. I do. I really do. It's a tough boat to be in, a tough place to be in, because on one hand, what I've learned is you can't run a transit system charging people $5 a ride without the 75% match from the state. It's impossible. We're with our little bus, I'd call it. We are on track to give about 260 rides this month, but we're out of funds now because I did that off. You know, we bought a bus. We went and got somebody to help us with insurance. We got some donations from the Oddfellows, and we were able to do this and run this thing. And what I've learned is, well, there's two things. One is to start a new transit system up from from scratch would then take there's going to be a way bigger ask from somebody, because it's not going to be a private entity. Unless, if it is a private entity, they're going to have to submit for that 75% match. And then they're going to still ask for local funding to do this. So that's the problem I'm having myself is, so if this all goes away and then another one starts up, what's that gonna cost us? You know, is this 150 a better investment at this time than another 500,000 a year from now? So that's what's gonna happen just because of what I've learned on how this thing operates. Now, I will say that when I was really unaware of who used the bus. We tried to cater to elderly, and we've given those rides. In fact, Neil's right back there. He's the driver for that bus. We tried to cater to the elderly, and I wouldn't say elderly, just anybody who's, I guess, a little over me. But what I found is it's not just people who don't have vehicles. It's people that some people are temporarily handicapped, I guess I would say, where they just had a knee surgery and their wife can't get them in the car, so they call because they can use the lift to get to their appointment. And I would say 60 to 70% of these people are going to doctor's appointments and are, in need of some sort of transportation because either their eyesight has gone bad, they've lost their license. And so what I found is the majority of these people were contributing taxpayers in our community already. And they just unfortunately have in their life process, are at a point in their life where they can't drive anymore, or they can't afford a vehicle for one, or they are temporarily out of service essentially, because they've got something wrong with their body and it's healing. And so we've seen that. In fact, we've had people that I've known personally have called and gotten a ride. Today it was unfortunate because today we had to get the oil changed. Well, that's a day we're out of commission. So we had some elderly people that missed their appointments for the doctors today. So I wrestled with it really hard because initially I was really, really upset with this whole situation happened because it was just such a major investment on our side and put our community in a dire need. We pointed fingers and blamed, why didn't you do this? Who did that? What happened, ultimately goes to the fact that we are a naive community. We're very caring, and that's just how Midwesterns are. You trust people, which is unfortunate that we trust this character. But when I say we, I mean I wasn't personally involved, but as a community and people that were part of that board and part of that team, trusted this individual, and he bamboozled them. I mean, you can't get any way around it. It happened. So moving forward, I'm weighing two options. It's the option of no, try to get yourself put together and go out there and raise your funds. If they do it, do it. If you don't, then we're out the service, right? And then somebody's gonna come along and have to build up a new service. And I said, I'm gonna repeat myself one more time. That new service, they're gonna come back, hey, we need $300,000 worth of funding to buy our fleet. We can't afford to buy a fleet of 30 of these things. So just like last year, it's gonna be on repeat. And then they're gonna be, well, then you guys are doing it 120 a year to supplement our wages. We need 200,000 to supplement our wages. It's an ending process. And it's a never ending process, I'm sorry. And the fact that Norfolk has, like Josh stated earlier, I don't think a lot of people know that, but we've been supplementing transit for a long time. It just didn't start at the 2020. It started before that. So, I mean, they're asking for this 150. That gets them to 500 potentially. The Johnny Carson matches 500, so that's 1 million, and then you get a 75% match from the state, right?
As we spent some of that's a very difficult question because some of the bills outstanding are not eligible for reimbursement.
Okay, that makes sense because I'm looking at a $4 million budget tonight, or actually no, you'd raise 4 from the state, so you have a $5 million budget,
right? Yeah,
and you're stating you've got 2.
Right.
You're asking for a $2 million budget. Or
2.5 will be the new budget for the year. Yeah.
So the rest of that wasn't obligated, what you have to pay down like 4 and some thousand in obligations.
We have over 400 in local debt here. We've got unpaid employment taxes, FICA, all that, Medicare, all that stuff.
So essentially you'll have 500 local dollars when it's all said and done to ask for the 75% from the state to get you that 2 point whatever million.
We don't want to come back here and say we ran out of money again.
Well, you stated that earlier, and that's one thing I took note of. You said the $3.7 million budget for the last character that was running this was inadequate with local funding.
Right.
So is that saying when he was going out and doing this, I mean, we won't know until the investigation is completely done. But I've always been speculating that there was impossible that he embezzled $750,000 in my own mind. I'm thinking he was running this thing into the ground.
There were two things. One, he was stealing money.
Right.
And the other is he was overspending.
Okay.
So he had promised, he had told us that, I don't remember, Tyson, that he had a check. I remember him showing a check. I got a check from Tyson, $50,000. It was $10,000. And all these services that he added were needed services. We had riders on all of them, but he didn't have the local match for it.
Bob, it's important you said that, because that is the bottom line for why I think you're not getting donations right now and you're struggling, is because that trust went away.
Right.
By saying what you just said, you just kind of put a base on what the heck happened.
Right.
Right? So that's been important. We've been looking for that. We've been asking that question, getting roundabout answers. But you've answered that question. Now I think it's important that we start anew. I don't know what is going to happen with your board right now. We've had a lot of the people sitting here. One of the requests we've gotten is to see that board transfer out. And you mentioned that in your deal, and that is, to me, is totally unfortunate, because it's a lot of innocent people that have their finger pointed at them in the social media for a long time now and are hurting over the deal. I mean, really physically hurting over the deal, and you can see it in their face.
Right, and by the way, they've raised $250,000,
Right.
Punished for doing a good deed,
I understand that, but so by that transferring out and bringing a new in, it's unfortunate, but it's what's got to happen. Creating a base like you're saying tonight, that there was over expenditures along with the embezzling, which makes me more comfortable with your budget by reducing the routes and becoming more, I don't know what you'd call it.
Sustainable,
right. Sustainable and, but still providing, to me, the most important lift is your telelift.
Right.
The telelift program, to me, is the one that is a very important part of our community. The flex route, yes, I think that's important, but I don't believe the flex route is as big a deal as the telelift is. So I'm glad that you're keeping that going, because that's what the people use to go to their appointments and whatnot. But I think if we can build a foundation here with some of the things that we've asked to do and that you guys are doing, if we can do that, maybe we can build this team back up again and get it so, this never happens again, obviously. Having an outside source do your books is a very important thing.
Right.
And I'm sure you guys I don't know what kind of audit system you're going to put in or how often you'll be doing audits to catch or fake subcontractors, which is a really easy way for people that are in charge of companies to funnel money out.
Right.
And I'm sure you're aware of all that. You've been very informative tonight. So I will get off my high horse here, but that is kind of how my mind's had to weigh this out. And I do have a little bit of different perspective. And it's funny that you guys came to the $5 figure, because I'm running what our expenditures were minus if we did get a stipend from the state on what you would have to charge, and it would be, for me, it'd be $5.50.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that it comes to that. So.
Yep.
Bob, I do have another question. The 57 donors, you said that's how many had contributed to this.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this question, because I think you're being brought in at the latter part of this. How many of those are repeat contributors that gave the first time and then now are giving again?
It's a small number. NIMCO, United Way, they've been donating over the years. So this is, we're asking for essentially one-time money. So most of those 57 are one-timers.
Okay.
Yep.
Bob, what happens on Tuesday if the money's not raised to Norfolk Area Transit?
An excellent question. Wednesday, we would call Johnny Carson and say, we raised X, okay? Now, if that X is $495,000, I would guess that they would say that's pretty close. If that X is 200 or 350 or something, then there would have to be some more discussion on what to do. And if they went one for one, Johnny Carson was very specific that we have to, they're going to donate so that they see service moving again,
Right.
not just to pay the debts.
Right.
So that will be a really a difficult decision or difficult conversation on March 1. So I'll tell you the afternoon of March 1.
Thank you.
Bob, I got one more question. I don't know if you have the answer to this, but we were told that there was a December audit. Do we have the findings of the December audit?
A December audit. We were going to do a mock audit, like an FTA type audit.
Okay.
And we had scheduled that for the end of October. And then Jeff's daughter went in the hospital, but she didn't. He had a heart attack, but he didn't. You know, there was just a whole bunch of excuses, so we never got that thing started. So as he smelled us going, he came up with excuses. But I'm not aware of a formalized audit. We had the review, McMill did the review on it, but when you say audit, I don't know. Well, you can answer that.
Hi, Bob.
Oh.
Hi, apologies for being late. Corrine Donahue with the Mobility Management Team. I will sign in, but just to answer your question, we do have a 2021 audit, and then we would have of December of 2021. And then in December of 2022, we would have completed the next year's audit.
When was the last audit that you have on record?
December 2021.
So nothing in June.
In June is the new
Was there
fiscal
an internal
year.
audit in June?
No, we typically do one annually, and it's in December. So December of 2020, there was one. December of 2021, there was one. And if this wouldn't have happened, we would have had a December of 2022 audit. And we do have to do one now because of the city contract and then also because of the state. So it's a typical annual process.
Okay.
Okay, we do want to allow some time for public input here. Council, any more questions for the mobility management team before we do that? Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Corrine. Anyone wishing to make public comment, I would just urge that, we've had some public discussion on this. Make your points brief and succinct, and I think everybody will be happy with that. Good evening.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Cecilia Herta. I've been a writer for, 4 years before this even happened. I'm a single mom of 2 kids. I've been at I started with them when I was at the rescue mission, completed the program and everything. When I first started my job, they've been helping me out so much from home, daycare, and work, and then back. So, it kind of devastated me when this happened because this was my only way to get anywhere other than family and friends helping me out on the weekends and stuff. I had a mini panic attack when it happened. I don't know what I'm gonna do other than my family and friends, which most of them are working and stuff. So luckily I have my brother that works at Hy-Vee too, so he was helping me out. But then Neil was nice. He came through the one day at work, at Hy-Vee where I work, and he gave me his number, so he's been helping me out too. But I just hope that this passes and stuff so it can help us out, and especially with people that aren't fortunate enough, like the handicapped, or people that can't get anywhere and stuff. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you.
My name's Neil Schlecht. I was a former employee with Transit. I currently have been having the bus here in town. When I first talked to Shane, I was thrilled because I could help the city out. Because I knew what happened to Transit was devastating. We've tried our hardest, me and Darlene, to touch everybody as much as we can. We've gone past what Shane had discussed with me at the beginning. We'd give other rides to other people that have called. I never turn down anybody. We just cannot leave town because there's only one bus currently going. It's sad to see that Norfolk has to come down to the last few days for something that is very well needed. I tell you, any person that I've currently had on my bus for Shane They've all been supportive. The first question they asked me is, when are you guys coming back? When are you coming back? I said, better sooner than later. I've had opportunity to go other places in this United States, but I felt obligated to serve the community with my service. I mean, Shane could have found somebody else, but there again, I jumped on it. No questions asked. What do you want me to do? I'll be there. We currently work till 3 o'clock, but if I need to stay later, I do that. That's my own time. I go pick her up and 2 other people before I even go get the bus in the mornings, because they need to be to work earlier, you know. But the biggest thing is, thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council, for at least considering this donation. We need it. Norfolk needs it. Some people might be against it, but 10 years down the road, let's say they get hurt, then they're gonna need it. Then they're gonna go, what happened? Why didn't I vote for that? Why didn't I appreciate that? You know? And most people, like Celia, you become friends with these people. You know, they all know me by name. You know, if I pick up somebody different, you used to work for Norfolk Transit. Yes, I did. And there again, then they ask me what's going on, but I really can't say too much. But the bottom line is, we need this, and we would be very supportive in the community.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Anyone else wishing to make public comment?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Kay Eierman. I'm employed by Hands of Heartland. We work with a group of individuals in this community that is special in a lot of ways. A big way is that a lot of these folks that we work with, adults with developmental disabilities, aren't able to get a driver's license, let alone own a car or even be able to afford the insurance and the maintenance that comes with all of that. So our public transportation is huge for them. It's not just huge for them for their day-to-day, like somebody had mentioned, doctor's appointments. I think, thank you, Shane, for what you and everyone you've worked with has done for, you know, older people in this community. It's a blessing, it really is. And our Norfolk public transit was the same for our adults with developmental disabilities, you know? It was a way that they could use to get to their jobs, to get home from their jobs, to get to their doctor's appointments, to have a social life. They were able to utilize this, you know, to go to movies and bowling and, you know, all kinds of other activities that other individuals with similar disabilities that are in the same community as them get to do as well. So I just really want to just thank you guys for having this hearing. I was also torn. I'm not going to lie. Like, personally, I'm like, wow, okay, we've already put in so much money, you know. But then, you know, professionally, when I'm working with the human beings that I work with and I'm seeing the struggles that they go through, because, you know, we had the handy bus here for a lot of years that a lot of those individuals used. And then when we brought in public transportation, they were so excited, all of them, they were like, wow, I can use this to go more places. It's going to be a lot more flexible for my needs and my wants. And then this happened, unfortunately. I know we keep revisiting that. But I want to thank all of you guys, and I want to thank Bob and Katie for coming and giving their presentation, because I think that if more people could have heard that, it instilled hope in me. It really did. But regardless of my personal feelings, which I am leaning more towards, yes, give them the money. Professionally, and just the people that I know that need this service would really appreciate a vote for yes for this, because another great point is, what happens if we don't say yes now in a few more years, you know, and our demand could be a lot higher by then. So it could definitely cost a lot more in a lot more ways. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I just wanted to just remind everybody of that part of our community that is sometimes kind of not thought about necessarily right away. because they're not always seen, you know, using those services and that. But that was all I wanted to say. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kay. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Jim McKenzie. First of all, I'm not against public transportation. My mom used it when I couldn't take her to doctor's appointments. That was the pre-NFAT Norfolk Public Transportation Service. It worked very well. Things have obviously changed since then. On December 16th of this year, last year, 2022, NFAT came to the City Council and asked for $88,000 advance on their agreement to cover payroll. They said during that meeting the banks would not loan them money, but they expected to receive over $200,000 within a week to continue operations, and yet 3 weeks later they shut down operations. It sounds like there's been a lot of mismanagement as part of NFAT, as well as potentially some theft. So how much is mismanagement and how much is theft? Does anybody really know? Do we have any idea of the magnitude of the losses? Is it $1 million? Is it $2 million? Is it $3 million? We don't have an audit. Do we have any idea if we give them another $1 million that they're going to be able to continue to operate? I haven't heard that guarantee. We don't have an audit. The audit was, NFAT's fiscal year ended June 30th. We should have had the audit by December 31 of 2022. There was no mention of the audit even being started that I've heard until the December 16th City Council meeting when the financial issues were disclosed. Perhaps if that audit had been started earlier, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. You know, what civil lawsuits may be pending against NFAT that may impair their ability to continue operations or even start back up? Do we know that? According to my notes, we've given NFAT, us in the county, $1,177,000 so far. And where are we at? Again, we need public transportation for those certain people that need it within the community. I am a little bit concerned that we create situations where we create dependencies on a system that is dependent upon federal and state funding. And you can say that's stable, but that's at the whims of federal and state legislators, and they can change that at their will. So I think we need to be careful about what we create and how sustainable it is. You know, NFAT's been the talk of the town for many months before what happened to it, with all the buses running around in circles and mostly empty. And I appreciate Bob's discussion, because that's the best I've heard so far about a plan for where this thing goes. You know, there's enormous individual and corporate wealth in this community in northeast Nebraska, and we've only been able to raise $200,000 or maybe commitments for $250,000. What does that say about people's trust in NFAT? I mean, I would donate to the old Norfolk Public Transportation, but I'm not ready to trust NFAT. Anyway, you know, basically, if you approve this, you become the easy fundraising of last resort. The average family in Norfolk with a median household income of $49,000 is the one who's going to pay for it. I just think there's a lot of risks. I haven't heard the answers to those risks. Even your funding agreement, your resolution doesn't say that they even have to start back up. I mean, there's nothing that your funding says in that agreement that they even have to resume operations. So you're going to give them $150,000 potentially, and nothing in that agreement says that they even have to resume operations.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Is that microphone on? No, it's not.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
We have to gut through it.
You're just gonna have to put up with a little extra fuzz.
My name is Brad Brooks. I'm gonna get signed in here. Okay, I did send an email out late last week to some of the people on the city council. I did not send it out to anybody or to everybody, but I appreciate those that did answer my email. Deep down, I know that we really need some public transportation. And it's not going to be an easy decision whichever way you folks decide to go, because there are some things that occurred the first time around that got us into this situation, and I'm really concerned about that. We're hearing that they didn't have enough insurance. I've been coming to these council meetings for the last year and a half, and I've heard and seen a lot of things. Personally, I think maybe that when this first came up, it got approved. There wasn't enough governance or whatever. People needed to look into things more than what they actually did. And so consequently, this thing took off. It was like a ship without a rudder at times. The intent was good, but I also think that there are some individuals that were or are still on the board that have a lot of other things going on in their life, personally, civically, and whatever. And when you get 15 individuals, and I'm not collecting them all together, but then again, I guess I am. Everybody says, well, this will be okay. We'll let Joe take care of it. Well, if Joe doesn't take care of it, guess what? Then we're faced with these situations that we are. But if we're going to approve this $150,000, there needs to be some strings attached to it as to who is going to be on the board. I understand that there's been some conversation about somebody off of the council being on the board. The more I think about that, the less I'm in favor of it. You folks all have very important jobs to do. And to be, I know you're involved in subcommittee meetings, council meetings, one thing and another. The new board's going to meet once a week. That's just another meeting that one of you potentially is going to have to go to. But by the same token, there's got to be some steps put in place. Sitting back, listening to everything, my math tells me that if you approve this 150,000 tonight, there's still $150,000 additional that's got to be raised by, I guess, 5 o'clock a week from today. That's an awful big ask, considering the board has been working diligently to get the money raised that they have. And I just don't have a warm, fuzzy feeling that this money's just gonna come out of nowhere. But once again, we do need the public transportation. I don't want to throw a bunch of cold water on it by any means. I know I'm probably talking out of both sides of my mouth, and it won't be the first time and it won't be the last time. But we really need to give some consideration to this. And I know that there's been a lot of time and effort. One thing, the city contributed, or excuse me, the county contributed $750,000 originally. Are they going to,
Brad, I need you to address the council, please.
okay, are they going to step up to the plate again and do anything? Or are they going to sit and wait until the authorities find out exactly what's going on? But that's my my thought on things. So,
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, everyone.
You,
First, I want to start by just acknowledging we can't change the past. We can't change how we got to this point. What we can change is the impact of how we move forward as a community. There are countless stories of individuals in Norfolk and the surrounding communities who are impacted by the transit shutdown. Many of us in this room have the means and ability to own or use a vehicle to get to school, work, grocery store, medical appointments, but not everyone in our community has that ability, accessibility, or privilege. The decision you're making tonight impacts many people in the community, and it may not seem like a huge impact to a lot of people who have the means to a vehicle or have accessibility. It impacts a lot of different people, such as, like you talked about, elderly people who are needing to get to medical appointments or the grocery store. I've heard stories of someone who's having trouble getting to their dialysis appointments. I've heard personally of a business owner who is struggling to stay open or maintain all their shifts because they've had an employee who had to quit and they're already short-staffed. There's other stories of, we've heard, individuals can't get to work, students who are struggling to get to school. I've also heard stories of individuals struggling to get to college class at Northeast. There's individuals who live on campus at Northeast, but they don't have a vehicle, so they're having to figure out how they're going to get to the grocery store. So there's so many different stories that that you may have heard, and the list goes on of all the individuals that are impacted. So all of these stories that we're hearing demonstrate a need for transportation in this community. Ideally, Norfolk Area Transit would be operating on their own. That's the ideal scenario. However, that's not the case currently, and that's not to the fault of any of the individuals who have used this service and need that service. Supporting the reopening of Norfolk Area Transit directly impacts our community in a multitude of ways. So I strongly urge you to support this resolution tonight to help our community move forward and serve the most vulnerable individuals in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you signed in, but could you
Yes.
state your name for the record, please?
Sorry. Yes, my name is Angie Bailey.
Okay. Thank you, Angie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Good evening.
My name is Rebecca Saunier. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know anything about the politics of this, but I was a customer of North Fork Area Transit. About a year ago, my vehicle was parked in front of my house and it was totaled in the middle of the night, hit and run. So, and I had recently started my new job. And if it wasn't for North Fork Area Transit, I could have potentially lost my job. I am a wife and a mother of 3. And that would have greatly affected my ability to provide for my family if North Fork had not been there for that transportation. But I just kind of wanted to share how important it was to myself and my family, and how important I feel it is for this community and people that are low income, like the lady before me said, you know, can't afford a vehicle necessarily to get to the grocery store or get your kids to school. It is a struggle. So I really hope this can work out.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you.
Good evening, Gina Lindsay. Just a few comments. I too support the fact that we do need public transportation in Norfolk. I don't deny that. I empathize with the people who have lost the ability to use that service, and I understand their need for it and the ongoing need to have that. However, I also understand as a taxpayer how many times my pocket's been dipped into to support it via the city, county, and state level. And I think that needs to be considered. If there's extra $150,000 in the city council budget, we all know that the police department is in dire need of expansion too. I think it could be well spent there as well. And this has already been brought up by somebody, but if the citizens haven't stepped forward to contribute enough to reach this 500,000, I think that speaks to what the city wants, the citizens, and you should listen to your constituents and their wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing and hearing no one else, any further discussion, council?
One question for Bob. You talked about you were averaging between 9,000 and 10,000 rides per month with the old route system. What are you going to, with the new route system, what will that change to?
It'll be much lower. We won't have the school trippers for the K-12 kids here. Some of them will migrate over to the existing routes. Some of them will be on telelift. If we don't have the Pierce, that's a lot. That was a big chunk. So, and then we're not going to have as many drivers as we've had on telelift in the past. We're only going to have 8 or 9 drivers, and we had 12. So we'll have a capacity constraint in there. I would guess somewhere around 4,000. Some people will come back quickly, like Celia said, you know, and then some people have gotten other rides. So it's really hard to predict on that. But I would hope for the first week or two or month will be pretty low, but then I would hope we could get up into that 4,000 range.
Do you know about what the difference is between the riders of like the telelift and the route for the flex route? Like if you had to say of that 4,000, is 60% with the telelift and 40% with the flex route, or what would you kind of, how would you, in your mind?
That's really tough. We had a lot of middle school, high school, junior high kids on forklift. You know, I don't know what parents are doing with them now, so I hesitate to throw a number out there on that.
I was just looking at it financially. If you're getting at $5 and you're doing 3,000 rides a month, and then you double that, take that times 12, and you're at $5, then I would imagine I think it was you were $5 on and $5 come back and pick you up, so it'd be like a $10 round trip.
Yeah, it could be that high, yeah.
What?
You need to speak
they're
at the
doing now.
Well,
podium, please.
yeah, the telelift proposal is $2 a ride.
I see, $2 to tell.
But $5 to go to Madison, so, yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Any other discussion, council?
You know, I guess want to make a comment. You know, apparently the Johnny Carson Foundation felt this was a pretty viable business here in Norfolk to even offer a matching fund of $500,000. I think to get an opportunity to get a match up to that is something I think we need to take a long, hard look at. I'll echo Shane's comments earlier about, you know, a startup. Obviously, you have very firsthand knowledge on that. The amount of money that would take to get this thing up and running again, and here we have in front of us an opportunity for a $500,000 matching fund. It seems like an opportunity that maybe needs to move forward. You know, the other comment, I guess, I'm just kind of looking at some notes here. You know, a lack of public transportation, you know, could lead to, you know, a public health issue. Getting people to and from where they want to go. We live in a rural community. We're miles away. Some people are, and they can't walk. So they do need this transportation. I guess I'm just seeing that there are a lot of bad things that happened to get to this point. But how do we get to the next one? And I think this is a step forward to get to that next one.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Well, I think I want to reiterate some of the things that Council's already said. I think some new points arose here tonight that are of value. The infrastructure is in place here. Completely losing that opportunity starts us at ground zero. I've heard everyone here tonight say that we need some kind of transit. And I think that need has been recognized over this last year by the system growing and then going away. And how we got here, completely understand, is unfortunate and maddening. And as much as we'd all like to go back and prevent it from happening, we can't. So I think now the focus needs to be reform. And I'm glad Bob and the management team was here tonight to give us a glimpse of that startup plan. And within that, the reforms that come with it for providing a sustainable system that will help us, hopefully, in the short term, start to provide critical services again for the most vulnerable in our community. I certainly think this is a justifiable community expense. The benefit, I'm not going to belabor the point, but kids getting to school, elderly, disabled folks getting to doctor's appointments, workers getting to work. I've heard from employers who have been impacted by this, by people not being able to get to work. It's a difficult decision in a lot of ways, and then in some ways it's not. This is when the mantle of leadership, I think, falls heavy. But I've heard a lot in church over the years about loving thy neighbor as thyself, and a prayer that my kids and I have said from when they were little is to help us help people who need our help. And I think that's the situation we're in now. So I will stop talking at this point. Is there any other discussion among the council before we vote? All right. If not, please vote.
voting in the affirmative, Granquist, Arns, McCarthy, Murin, Clausen, voting in opposition, Hildebrand, resolution.
There's five. Yeah.
Resolution 2023-13 is adopted.
All right. Item number 30, potential closed session for the protection of public interest to discuss potential litigation. So I would look for a motion to go into closed session for the protection of public interest.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, the only item discussed during the closed session was potential litigation. May I have a motion to come out of closed session?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
That was the last item on the council agenda. Therefore, the meeting is concluded and we are adjourned.